Welcome to the Cook's Domain. Today, I'm going to be cooking Stifado. Now, Stifado is a Greek beef stew. It's a rather thick one. And I think it's one of the best, well, not just stews, I think it's one of the best dishes in the world. Now, I'm not going to be cooking this, though, in the traditional method. Not that there's anything wrong with the traditional method. It must be good for it to have lasted all these centuries. But we know more about cooking and we've learned a lot more. And I sometimes think that just because somebody cooked it one way 300 years ago, 500 years ago, whenever, doesn't mean that that's the best way to do something. As the great chef Olvera once said, our grandmothers didn't know everything. So I try and use that. But what I'm going to be cooking here today is not some newfangled version. It's or like you see on many YouTube videos where they say they're going to cook something that's traditional, like a lasagna, for example, and then they'll put aubergine in it, or they'll put courgettes or zucchinis or whatever in it and make it different. I'm not saying that that isn't good. I'm sure it's a very lovely dish, but it's not really a lasagna anymore, because the moment you taste it and you eat it, you're going to say, oh, it's like a lasagna, but there's something else in it. It's nice, but it's something else. It becomes something different. So I won't be doing the traditional method. I'll be doing a more modern version to make Stifado the best it can be. But no one who will eat it will say, this is Stifado-like, or I don't know what this is. It's nice, but I don't know what it is. They'll say it's Stifado, but not only that, they'll say this is one of the best Stifados they've ever had. That's what I'm trying to do. Always using the best techniques in cooking to get the very best out of that dish. Now, what we're going to need, there's a whole bunch of things involved, and Stifado has many stages in its preparation. It's quite involved, but it is well worth it. It's a wonderful, wonderful dish. The things that need the most preparation now I have here. First thing is you're going to need your cubed beef, and it's cut quite big. The pieces are quite big, as you can see. Now, you can buy cubed meat from the supermarket, but that stuff's no good. It doesn't taste very nice, doesn't cook very nice. I don't like it, I never buy it. What I would suggest, if you're going to buy your meat from a supermarket, is buy a roasting joint, like topside, which I don't think, by the way, is very good for roasting, but it's excellent for stews. Buy the loin, cut it up yourself into these big cubes, and it is wonderful. You can also use silverside, but silverside needs a little bit of work to clear it and cut off all the silver skin that's on it. If you want less hassle, go for the topside. You're also going to need, so this is about a half a kilo. You're also going to need about a half a kilo of shallots, and it's like these little onions, if you will. And you want to peel them, top them, core them, as it were. Cut off their stems and leave them as whole as you can, because this is how it's served traditionally, and they are wonderfully sweet and beautiful in a Stifado. We're also going to need a regular onion, a brown onion, one medium to large size that has been diced. And you're going to need 2 large carrots or 3 medium carrots grated. And 2 stalks of celery, very finely diced and chopped. My only other secret ingredient, which now any Greek watching will be going, what's he saying? That's not a Stifado. But I add it because, again, I know that this will make my Stifado better. It's smoked bacon. You can also use pancetta. Okay, once you have your strips, so this was originally strips of bacon, I then cut it very, very finely, because this bacon is absolutely going to melt into our sauce, and it's going to add a flavor that's going to contribute to the overall dish. No one eating this will say, I think there's bacon in this. No one's going to think there's bacon in it. They're just going to think it's a great Stifado. And that's what the bacon does. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is the pan that we're going to cook in. Make sure it's something that you can put a lid on. That's very important. Now, for the moment, we don't need the lid. We want to get it up to a medium-high heat. So that's somewhere between your medium setting and your high setting. So I'm going to get a little bit of oil in there. And what we're going to do now is get some colour onto our shallots. So we take a shallot and we're going to put them down for colour. We're not trying to cook them all the way through. We're just trying to brown them, caramelize them. Once you've got them all in the pan, just let them sit, because we want to get nice brown colouring all on that one side. And then what we're going to do is turn them to get colour on the other side. There we go, it's got some lovely colour on that one now, so we can turn it around and we can start looking at turning them all round. But if you find any that don't have any colour, then just leave them down for a little bit longer. Now that we have some colour on one side, because we want a nice sweet caramelised flavour, we're going to add a half a tablespoon of sugar over the top of the onions. But before it starts to burn, we want to start moving the onions around now. This way they're going to start coating in that melting sugar. And we can turn our heat off now. So just keep tossing them just for a few more seconds. But now we can remove them and just put them in a bowl, separate bowl, until we're ready to use them again. Okay, so once we've caramelized our shallots, we now need to brown our meat. So what I do is, we don't want to put a lot of pieces down, we don't want to crowd the pan. And I start from the 12 o'clock position and work my way around. Now, browning meat means that, which makes a beautiful crust on the beef. You want a very hot pan. If all you're going to do is grey your meat, you don't need to do this step at all. It's a waste of 10 minutes. I think we can get one more in there. So the pan is now not crowded, as you can see. And we're going to give that beef the opportunity to brown. If you put too much meat in there, which a lot of people do, they just throw a whole load in and they say they're browning. What they're doing is greying. And what happens is the temperature of the pan comes way too low. The beef releases all its juices, and all you end up doing is boiling or stewing that meat. And we're not stewing yet, we're frying. Now, if you're using a normal pan, that is a non-stick pan, the beef would be stuck now. And if you go to move it, as you can see, I'm giving it quite a thump, it's not moving. Right, it's stuck. The beauty of using a pan like this is, you can't mess this up. Because when this piece is perfectly browned, it will release and you'll be able to turn it around. Alright, so let's have a look. Oh, there you go, that moved. You see that beautiful mahogany colour? That one's still not ready, not ready, not ready. So that was ready, but we know the rest won't be too far behind now. Look at that colour, beautiful. That is what browning is. Okay, once our beef is browned, our first batch, turn your heat down to low, because we don't want all the soot underneath to burn. So let's get our brown pieces out. So we've added the smoked bacon and let it render for a minute or two. Then we added the onion and just allowed that to coat in the bacon grease and the oil and the stuff that was at the bottom here, the sook. And then we added our carrots, and we're just trying to soften it now. So just move it around every now and again. Now obviously when you add these things, it brings the temperature of your pan down. So you need to bring the heat back up. And we're just trying to soften all of these veggies, and also to pick up as much of the sook from the bottom as we can. But we're also going to use some oil in some wine in a little while, and that would also help deglaze the pan for us. Okay, we're picking up all those delicious beef flavors underneath. Apparently the Americans call the sook fond. I'm not sure why that is. I'm guessing it's on a steak from the French. Fond is what you do with the stuff at the bottom after you've started to add your wine and whatever, and you're sort of creating a stock. So if you were to say fond to a Frenchman, he'd be confused, because it's what you do with the souk, which is the stuff that's stuck at the bottom, that becomes a fond. That word is. In England, we mostly just say the crusty bits at the bottom. We don't have a specific word, or we would say souk, which is the French word for that stuff at the bottom. But once I start adding my wine and my water or whatever else I'm going to add to this to pick up all this stuff at the bottom, then that fluid that we have would then be fond in some shape, I guess. So at this point we're going to add 125 milliliters or half a cup of red wine. So let's add that now. Just add any red wine that you like, but try and avoid the lighter fruitier ones. You want something that's quite bold. Okay, once the red wine has all been absorbed and evaporated, we want to add a stick of cinnamon or cassia bark, as I'm using here, which is more traditional, but normal cinnamon will work just fine. And we also want a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, just a flat double teaspoon of allspice. Let's work that in. Okay, we want to add a tablespoon of tomato puree. And let's work that in. Just give that a second to cook off. And the next thing we want to add is a can of chopped tomatoes. There we go. We're just going to give that a minute or two. Okay, so you need to have ready now 600 mils of beef stock. And you want it ready because we're now going to add 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. And once we've done that, we want to add the stock in straight after this. So 3 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. And straight over the top, our beef stock. Mix that in, and it's at this point we now add our beef. So our brown beef goes straight in, and any juices it would have accumulated at the bottom there, straight into the mixture, and make sure that's covered in this beautiful liquid. And once we've got it up to a rolling boil, you want to put the lid on and then turn the heat down to medium low. Okay, so it's been about 40 minutes. We just want to see what's going on in here. And we've got a nice rolling boil in there. You just want to make sure nothing's sticking at the bottom. We're waiting to get to a point where that meat is just turning tender. Not totally tender, because then it will just split apart and disintegrate in our sauce. But just where it's starting to turn tender, so we can add our shallots in there too, because if we add them in too early, they'll disintegrate. So we want to get everything in at the right time. Best thing to do now is add a little hot water, because we can always cook the water out, but we need the water to soften this meat and to soften all the veggies that are in here, because we want our sauce to become nice and luxurious. Put the lid back on, and we're going to give it at least another 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been another 20 minutes. Just give everything a stir. Let's have a look at the beef. Yeah, it's far tender. You can tell just by touching it. First thing we want to do is take out
our bay leaves. And we want to take out the cinnamon stick as well. There we go. We want to put in our onions. Mix those in as well. And we just want to top up with a little bit of water. Not much. 100 mils or so. We want to cook this now without the lid for just another 20 minutes. And then this will be roughly ready. Now remember, all timings that I give you are approximates. We're looking at the stage of the cooking that's more important. So let's turn the heat back up, get this bubbling again. And at this point we can also test for salt, pepper, do just a little sprinkle more of salt, a few grinds of black pepper, and 1 more tablespoon of red wine vinegar. Mix that in as well. Now what we have to do is turn it, now that we've got it bubbling, turn it right down to low, because it's going to start drying up and we don't want to burn anything underneath. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes and this has dried up and is looking perfect. The onions will be cooked through, the meat is tender, so now it's time to serve. Now you can serve it in a bowl and eat it like a stew. I mean, it's technically what it is. You can serve it with mashed potatoes or with rice, but I personally prefer to eat it with fried potatoes. I'll show you what that looks like. And there you have it. Stifado with some fried potatoes. Like I said, you could serve it with mash, you could serve it with rice. Most people just eat it in a bowl. It is a stew after all. I like to do maybe some steamed vegetables as well, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, whatever it is that you like with it. It's an absolutely warming dish, perfect for the winter. Let's see what it's like. Now we're looking for the meat to be super tender, like to break just with the fork. Look how easy that went straight through it. So tender. Perfect. Let's try one of these onions. Sweet and a beautiful onion flavor, not too strong. So good. And this sauce, this nice, rich, thick sauce. Just bit one of the peppercorns. Beautiful. Just adds a nice little pop. So good. That's fantastic. I really urge you guys to try this. Take your time with it. It's slow cooking, but it's so good. Thank you for watching.